Welcome to the Mastering Business Skills podcast, where we interview successful small business owners who share their own journey, mastering the skills they needed to grow and be successful in their business. Learn the struggles, the wins, and all the things they learned along the way, so you can cut down on your own learning curve.
Hi, welcome to Mastering Business Skills. On today's show, we're talking to Bernie DeSantis. Bernie is the mustache behind Insignia Training Partners, a training broker that connects companies with top-tier talent through fractional staffing and specializes in virtual training and virtual event production that doesn't suck. With 20 plus years in L&D, Bernie's all about making learning practical, applicable, engaging, and just a little more human. He also runs Growth Mode Engaged, a national B2B networking group, because building relationships is just as important as building skills. Welcome to the show, Bernie. We're so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you, Erin. I'm really glad to be here. I appreciate the invite. Sharon, thank you.
Yeah. So I know your story is a little bit different than some of our guests. You are the second owner of Insignia, which you worked at for 5 years as a learning consultant, contract facilitator, and virtual producer before purchasing the company from your predecessor when she was ready to retire. So tell us about that journey for you and what helped you decide to buy the business and go on your own with it.
Well, honestly, Erin, it really started a long time ago, right? I won't go through my entire work history, but in the wisdom of my teens, I went out and got a marketing degree thinking that, all of the widgets need to be marketed. So I should have no problem finding a job post-college. So naturally, I ended up in sales as my first gig, smiling and dialing. I was a mortgage banker for Quicken Loans, doing 100 phone calls a day. And I realized after about 60 days, wasn't the life I wanted. I wasn't about that. So I started looking for other work, both internally and externally to Quicken. And I happened to their company intranet page. I saw a position for a leadership development trainer. It was a new team and program they were rolling out. And so I had never led a team up to that point in a professional sense. I had never trained anyone before. And so I was like, well, I don't like what I'm doing now. So what the hell? I'll throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. And frankly, to my shock and surprise, I got the job, became their very first leadership development trainer. And my role there was in experiential learning. So I would take large groups of these up and coming leaders, and I would create these engaging events, things like ropes courses and SWAT team trainings, and these full scale immersive gamified events that focused on the same skill sets they'd use to run a team as a leader: problem solving, communication, teamwork, strategic thinking, and the likes. But as you can imagine, when somebody's dangling 3 stories up in the air on a ropes course, they have some interesting and sometimes profound breakthroughs. But seeing the light bulbs turn on was really what lit my fire for learning and development. I spent about 15 years in corporate America, mostly in the call center space, but always in and around leadership and learning and development. And like so many people, I got tired of the corporate rat race, the politics, the BS, all of the stuff, right? All of us escapees get away from. And I saw an opportunity in the world of contracting. So I met my predecessor and again, worked with her for about 5 years within the business. And one day I went to her and I said, hey, listen, I really like this contractor lifestyle. I'm really, making great money, better than I ever did in my corporate roles, less stress, more freedom. How do I do more of this? How can I help you to grow the business? And she came back and said, Bernie, I'm going to do you one better. I'm like, what the hell do you mean you're going to do me one better? She's like, listen, I am 65. My husband's 67. Been running this business for 15 years. I absolutely love it, but he's already retired. I'm ready to retire. And I've actually been looking to sell the business for the last couple of years. And I have never had feedback or results like I've had with you. I think you're the right person to take it over. So she made me an offer I couldn't refuse. My intent was quite frankly to stay contracting for the foreseeable future because I really do enjoy doing the work. But when somebody basically hands a company over to you and says, take care of me on the back end, I was like, well, yeah, I'm in. Sign me up. So there really wasn't a whole lot of thinking that went into it. I bought the company because I love training. I really enjoy helping people to grow. Like I said, seeing the light bulbs turn on is so incredibly satisfying. I really love seeing somebody do the thing that they weren't able to do or learn the thing that they needed to make it to that next level. It's more than money. That is what I enjoy about what I do.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like any entrepreneur that is not just in it for the money and is in it for the results and the impact they're making is how it's going to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, Erin. Most of us get into the business that we're doing because we enjoy doing the thing, right?
Yes.
Making whatever widget you make or providing whatever service we make. The purpose is to make money doing it, of course, but we wouldn't be doing that thing if we didn't enjoy that work as an entrepreneur, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So tell me, Bernie, what were some of the important skills that you needed to learn when you took over Insignia, and how did you acquire those skills? I mean, did your predecessor, was she your mentor? Did you have to learn by trial and error, or how?
All of the above, Sharon. Yeah, all of the above. Obviously working in corporate America, you do learn quite a bit about how a business functions, sometimes dysfunctions as well. So I had that, and obviously I had a business degree with marketing. So a lot of the things that I had already learned previously were certainly applicable. But I don't think that I was personally prepared to be a business owner when I took it over. Like I didn't really understand the accounting side of it, and accounts billable and receivable and HR issues and going out and finding the right talent, right? Like there's a lot of things that you have to do as a business owner that are not necessarily making your widget, right?
Right.
So certainly a combination of all of those things. The experience that I brought with me, my predecessor has, yes, been a mentor to me. I like to joke with her that she's 95% retired because I still retain about 5% of her time for, strategic conversations. But I've also sought out a lot of other mentors and coaches, right? If I find an area that I don't feel very strong in, I will go out and seek someone to help me, right? To leverage them to get better. One of my long-term goals is, because I like facilitating and training, I want to get on more stages, do more public speaking, right? I feel like I'm pretty good at it, but on the same token, I know that I can get better. So I went out, I hired a coach, I work with them. We meet for 2 hours every week. So some of the things that I've learned along the way were very specific and strategic, trying to fill the gap that I didn't have, the thing in before.
That's great. I think as small business owners, entrepreneurs, we have that passion for what we want to do. But I think in the beginning, I know it was that way for me. It was like I didn't really understand fully what all was going on behind the scenes. I knew what I wanted to do and I knew what I was good at. But the other stuff, I had to teach myself along the way. And I think a lot of it is trial and error, and thank God for mentors that we have. And, yeah, that makes a difference.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, I mean, there's a few coaches that I've worked with that I learned one or two things from, which was nice. But then there were some other coaches that I really bonded with, right? We had a great personal relationship, still have to this day. We continue to work together. There's a lot of value there. And I think that's an important piece, as well as you're developing as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, is you've got to recognize what help you need and what help you don't as well.
Yeah.
Because there are certainly a lot of folks out there, unfortunately, that sell snake oils and such, and you have to be conscious of that you don't want to just be sold a bag.
Yeah.
And I love that you went ahead and got coaches for the things that you wanted to get better in, because I think a lot of times, when you are in corporate or you're working for somebody else, they're taking care of, oh, you need to go for this training or that training or whatever it is. But as an entrepreneur, that's all on you. So some of and some entrepreneurs are like, don't realize it entirely at first because they're so used to having somebody else set up that training or do that, make them go to something. So I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. Well, I think we all get, close to our business, and sometimes it's hard to recognize where the gaps are because you're so close or because you've done it a certain way for so long. But once you have that awareness, like if you want to be successful and you want to get past that roadblock, you have to go out and seek the learning or the support that you need.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
So looking back, is there anything that you wish that you had learned sooner rather than later?
That is such a good question. I think it would probably be that running a business is not the same as as working within the business. Again, there are a lot of pieces that I wasn't privy to, and I don't blame my predecessor for not telling me. Like, you get to a point, I think, where you just don't really even think about those things. It's natural for you. But for me, as the new business owner, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I have to spend X amount of hours a week just sending out invoices. Like, this is partly a good problem because that means we have money coming in, but that also means I'm sitting in front of my computer for 2, 3, 4 hours sending out invoices. Right. I would say that's probably one of the big things. I think the other thing is the value of networking and developing a network of trusted resources. A lot of people try to do everything on their own. I was certainly guilty of that for a really long time. I mean, yes, I had my mentor, but ultimately I was the boots on the ground, and I generally still am. But recognizing the value that other people can bring to your business, not even necessarily as a vendor, but again, just to bounce ideas off of, make introductions, get referrals and such. I wish I had recognized the value of that earlier, but also recognize how to do it earlier. Because I was absolutely one of those guys when I would go into a networking where, you guys have probably heard the phrase getting pitch slapped, right? I was that guy every time I walked into a room. Hey, you want to buy my crap? And I was wondering why nobody bought my crap. So once you kind of figure out that networking is a long-term game and it's a give to get situation, it's not just always expecting to be referred or passed business to. You get a whole hell of a lot farther.
Yeah.
And I know that you offer a service for a production of virtual events, both done for you and done with you approaches to support clients conducting all types of virtual events. So that is something that so many business owners need right now. And I know that when you and I talked recently, I had a lot of aha moments, for ideas that you had around things that we talked about. And you offer support ranging from just the technical logistics to the whole thing with the marketing, sales support, and all that. So can you tell us more about this service? Because I know our audience will be really interested in order to have high level and successful events.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Since COVID, let's be honest, virtual is a viable way of doing business, right? You don't have to do things in person anymore. Still a lot of value in it, but virtual is accepted as a way of doing business and doing outreach, right? Having conversations with people, teaching. So throughout COVID, Insignia got really heavy into the virtual training space. We were fortunate enough to be working with Ernst & Young at the time. They were still doing most of their trainings in person when COVID hit. So, you guys do the math, 500,000 people globally now have to do everything virtual. It was a big lift and shift for them. But since the early days of COVID, things have gotten better. But the one thing that we've recognized is that most people, best intentions, don't necessarily have all of the technical skills or the desire to learn all of the things that you need to do a virtual event. And the reality of it is that even if it's an internal training, there are hundreds of little steps to making a virtual training or virtual event successful. Right. And Sharon, we had a conversation before we opened up the podcast. That there are a lot of things to do. I did an evaluation a couple of weeks ago, actually about a week ago. It takes roughly 36 hours of time to effectively set up and market a virtual event, if you actually want to do it correctly, right? Mm-hmm. But again, if you don't know all of the steps, you can put in all the time in the world and still not have a great attendance. You may not ultimately get the people that you want there. So what my service is, I guess I'm taking the long way around, is online event consulting and virtual production of events. Everything tip to tail, from the technical setup, the marketing, the pulling of the levers during the event, things like the managing the waiting room, the breakout rooms, the polling questions, all the stuff that you have to do to make a virtual event. And then the follow-up afterwards, right? Because those are the things that most people struggle with: getting the right people to show up, creating an engaging event that people lean into, and then following up with the people that attended or registered afterwards. So we've created a full tip to tail service for virtual events that's essentially turnkey and hands off for our clients. So they get to more or less just show up and deliver content.
That's awesome. Because when you said the actual number of 36 hours, I know, like, when you think about that number, I mean, for me anyway, it's like, and Sharon and I do this type of work all the time, but you don't actually think of that 36 hours is like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of time. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs think, oh, I'm gonna put together an event and I'm gonna host it in a week or two.
If I build it, they will come.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
send out a couple emails or put up a couple social media posts and voila, I'm gonna make $1 million, because that's what it looks like with the big guns that are doing it. It looks
Right.
like it's easy. And so thank you for kind of putting that perspective on the backside of how long and how many little moving parts there are to have a successful event, so that people can really think about it.
Even just down to the messaging, Erin, right? Like, I mean, I think I heard recently the number is 12 to 18 touch points to get people to engage for a sales conversation. I mean, we're not even trying to sell them. We're just trying to get them to show up to an event.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember when it used to be 5 to 7?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to get 100 people to show up, you're talking about thousands of messages.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people wanting to do a virtual event like that even think about that.
Nope.
In those realistic terms. I mean, I know when I talk to clients, it's like, oh, okay, well, I want to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. And the list goes on, and they're like, oh. Didn't realize that, but there is, and it's a long list of things that need to be done.
It is. I mean, both technical as well as, kind of your own soft skills. You've just taking the time to rehearse is something that is oftentimes overlooked. Like, they just want to show up the day of the event. You've got to work on your presentation. You've got to make your deck. You've got to plan for engagement. You all of these things you need to do as the presenter.
Make sure, check the tag, all of that.
Yep, exactly. So I'm curious, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who was starting their business, what would your first piece of advice be?
Probably, if you don't currently feel comfortable with selling, get comfortable fast. Because no matter how good you are at doing what you do and how much you love it, you have to be able to sell it to make money.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Absolutely. I see a lot of business owners that are truly passionate about what they do, really, really good at what they do. But you ask them to talk about what they do, to sell what they do, they struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been in business for 30 years. Even to this day, there's times that I struggle trying to sell myself. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know why I have a block about it, I guess.
I think almost everybody does at one point or another, and it's kind of intermittent. I don't necessarily want to say it's, imposter syndrome, although for some that happens. Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's the shiny light effect, right? You're talking to somebody who you'd really like to get that deal and you just get a little bit nervous. But I think a lot of it is people don't intentionally sit down and think about, what do I want the other person to hear and understand about what I do?
Yeah, that's true.
Good point.
Yeah, very good point. So how do you continue learning and improving as a business owner now?
It's interesting. I have more or less generally stopped consuming content for the most part, unless I recognize it's something that I need. But because I work with so many different types of clients in different industries, I get to go in and learn something new all the time, about different types of organizations. I do a ton of networking as well. So I get to talk with a lot of different types of subject matter experts about what's going on in their industry and what their needs are. So I would say, quite frankly, it's probably more, maybe not the right way to put it, but it's more the socializing where I get information about what's going on in the marketplace. I like to talk to people in their space and gather that information. But above and beyond that, being in the virtual event space, I like to go to virtual events a lot. So if I see somebody's doing a master class about something that interests me, I'll go and check it out. I do almost everything virtually now. I would say 95% virtual, 5% in person. I actually went to my first in-person networking event last week in almost a year.
Oh my.
Well, so tell us a little bit about your networking group, because I know you put a lot into relationships and all. And I mean, Sharon and I both being in business as long as we have, we all know that's, that's how you end up having the clients and having long-term clients and, getting referrals and all. So tell us a little bit about your networking group and what got you into hosting that.
So thank you for asking. My group is called Growth Mode Engaged. It's a national B2B chapter of Success Champions Networking. As I kind of alluded to earlier, when I first started networking, I had no friggin' clue what I was doing. I didn't even know that there was a difference between a B2C room and a B2B room, right? So I was going to all these networking events, just whatever I could find myself into for free of charge. I was going to talk to people, and I would go in there and, again, unfortunately, pitch slap people and tell them all about my services and why they're so great and why they should buy them. And I was getting no sales. But then I was introduced to Success Champions Networking by another president within the chapters, or excuse me, within the membership. And she invited me to a training course with the CEO of Success Champions Networking, Donnie Bovin. And he kind of flipped me on my head. He helped me to recognize that there was a difference between the rooms. There is an appropriate way to network and talk to people. And as I started to implement some of the things that he was talking about, it started to work. I started getting introductions to the people that I wanted to talk to. And it wasn't just transactional, right? I wasn't always looking for a sale. I was focused on building relationships. And that's what really drew me into Success Champions, was the focus on building relationships, not transactions. Now, within the groups, do transactions happen? Yeah, absolutely. Because you start to build the know, like, and trust, right? You start to get those referrals because people understand that you know what you're talking about. But within our group, it really is about building a community of support with each other. There's always education on a business topic. And then it's networking, right? We put people in breakout rooms in some weeks. Sometimes it's a round table. Sometimes we'll do a hot seat and tackle a business challenge. But it's all about, how do we grow our businesses together? How do we win together? And that's how we focus on networking the right way in Growth Mode and Success Champions.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I know when I was first in business, I did the hand out your card to everybody and anybody that, and then get their cards and follow up. And hey, we met at so-and-so's event. And, so I totally get the whole pitch slapping.
And
I'm totally the opposite.
Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
No, I was just going to say, I'm totally the opposite. I am such an introvert. When I have done networking, I'm the one that you see off in the corner, usually by myself, not really talking to anybody, I'm the one that's listening to everyone. So.
Yeah, in-person events, Sharon, I'm the same way. I am the guy who's going to come in, I'm going to scan the room, I'm going to go to the food table, maybe to the bar, and then I'm going to stand in the corner for about 15 or 20 minutes while I eat everything and have a cocktail and observe what's happening out in the space, right? But that's also honestly one of the reasons why I like virtual. I mean, yes, you can be a wallflower in virtual, but we are all here together in the same room. We can all hear each other. We can talk. Right. Large networking events in person, I struggle with because I am that introvert. I want to if I'm going to have a conversation, I want it to be a little bit more intimate. And there's just too much going on in those large events for me.
Right.
Personally. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So tell us a little bit about your definition of success. What does it mean to you? And has it changed at all since you started your business to now? Or even before that?
It has definitely evolved over time. I think that when you are in the corporate world, right, success looks like one thing. It's climbing the ladder. It's, making a good paycheck. It's having all the benefits and all of the things. But it looks a little bit different when you become an entrepreneur, when it's your own business. I would say early as an entrepreneur, money was definitely the primary measure of success. And to some degree, it still is. But there are lots of different ways of looking at success, right? There's financial, there's, mission driven, things of that nature. So for me, I would say that it's probably shifted from a predominantly financial aspect while I still have, those goals. it's switched more to a mission driven. How do I be of service and maximize the impact that I can have in the world? One of the things that I do is a quarterly event for suicide prevention and mental health awareness. I lost my best friend to suicide a little over 20 years ago. And one of the ways that I found I was able to heal myself was by providing that support to others, helping others to heal. So that has become more of where I really get fulfillment, is providing information and services and suggestions and networking introductions to people who need it in that space. Not so much on, do I get $1 million in sales, or do I do 100 virtual events? It's, what is the impact that I'm having? Am I actually helping anyone with the thing that I'm doing?
That's awesome. I think that's a great, I think maybe as all business owners, maybe we all kind of evolve that way. In the beginning, it's, fame and fortune. And then it becomes, wait, that's not what's important. What's important to me now is helping someone, getting on with the mission. So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And I would honestly say that probably the highest priority for me at this point certainly is still getting sales, certainly still making money, but the highest priority is freedom of time, right? Ultimately being able to choose what I do with my time, not being chained to the job or to the business. I've got a 1.5-year-old daughter. She's my world. I want to spend more time with my family. That is ultimately what's important for me. 3 years ago, when I bought the company, she wasn't even a thought, and so it was all about how much time can I put into the business? How many calls can I make? How many conversations can I have? How many widgets can I turn out? And that's just, it's changed.
Yeah. That's awesome. So is there a personal habit or like something daily that you do that kind of helps contribute to your success?
So a good question. One of the things that I struggled with, and I would even say I still do to a degree, is just getting overwhelmed with the volume of different tasks and things that need to be done on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis for a business, right? So I would often find myself with a just stacked calendar from the moment that I wake up until the end of the day. That part hasn't changed so much. But what has changed is my mental state and my approach. So every day I spend about a half an hour meditating and listening to like they're called triliminals, but it's basically mantras, right? Just different self-talk that I can repeat to myself and help get myself in the right state to approach all of the things that I have to do in a day. I think probably more than anything, for a business owner, they have to get control of their own emotions and their own mental state and how they approach the thing that they're going to do. Because if you're not in the right state of mind to approach the task at hand or the conversation at hand, it's not going to go the way that you want.
Right. No, that's great. That's great. I myself have been trying to do more of the meditation every day to just kind of get myself in a better headspace and a little more focused. I find that when I do that, I am more focused and I'm more productive when I do that. So it doesn't always happen, but I try.
I'm not able to do it every day, but I try to make time for it every day. And on the days that I do, it's always a more productive day. I feel less overwhelmed, right? Like it's just a better outcome for me. So I try to do it every day when I can.
Yeah, I tend to do it too throughout the day. Like if something happens and just to kind of reframe and get back into that, or even just, an energy lift or something like that too.
Yeah, I found that that different breathing techniques help as well. One of the members of my group, Dave Gieselman, he's a certified breath coach. And so one of our 10-minute teaches in the group was him teaching us how to do a relaxing breath exercise. And so sometimes middle of the day, I'm starting to feel a little bit of the overwhelm. Like, all right, I'm going to pause. I'm going to do the breathing thing and then recenter myself and then go.
Yes. Yeah. So to wrap up, tell us what's next for your business, and is there anything new that you're excited to learn or that you're planning on learning in the near future?
That's a really good question, Erin. For me, it's really about growth and scaling out. I don't necessarily want to add a ton of employees to the business, right? Our model is fractional, and so we work with a lot of contractors. But I would certainly like to get more business. As far as new services, new offerings, really focusing in primarily on the virtual piece right now, but still doing all of the other fractional work as well. What I'm probably most excited about, and from a new skill perspective I alluded to earlier, is I really want to get on more stages, both for a professional development standpoint, doing those types of talks, but also the suicide prevention piece as well. I'd really like to be able to have an impact on the community from that perspective.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you do that also, because I think when you and I first talked, we actually connected over that piece of the thing of things, because we've both been through it. So yeah. So, well, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And we're going to put your how to connect with you in the show notes so anybody can get in touch with you and hopefully get their events going with your help and getting it, making it more successful. And to anybody listening, we thank you and we hope that you tune in for the next show.